Hey, Nona.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Oh, I will turn on my light.
I think a lot of committees aren't meeting
You're
in
muted.
December. Oh, I am. Okay, 1 second.
You're still muted.
Okay.
Huh. Let me see if I can, no, I can't do anything for you. I don't have any control at all. You know, at the bottom of your screen, on the
Yeah.
bottom, hey Dee, on the bottom of your screen, on the bottom left, you should have the control to unmute.
Yeah, mine says I'm unmuted.
And sometimes it asks you what microphone you want to use.
Right.
I think it's turning everybody's mic off as we log in. Do you have sound? No one has sound but me? You do have sound?
That's fun.
Can you say something? Can I hear you if you talk?
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I can't hear anybody else talking though.
I
Really?
hear everyone.
I'm talking.
Can you hear
Or
me?
maybe my oh
MJ,
no.
can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Now I can hear you.
Okay.
Dee, can you hear me?
I can hear everyone. Can you hear me?
Good, yes.
Okay, good. Awesome.
I think it was just Jennifer. for
Zoom
some
is just
reason.
weird. I don't know. And I don't know what controls they have. Now I have to hit the volume control. I have no idea. How was everyone's Thanksgiving?
It was good.
Good, good. Good, good. Disneyland was wonderful. It's magical. The decorations are so beautiful. Oh gosh. So gorgeous.
Fun.
So we are waiting for Wanda and Craig. I don't think Jeremy will join us tonight.
Hey, Jennifer, I know this is at the very end of the agenda, but you know, last meeting, Craig had mentioned if we meet on January 2nd, that none of the staff can attend.
Yes, that's true.
So we're still, you don't want to change it?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't.
Just thought I'd ask.
Maybe I guess I shouldn't make a joke about that, so never mind. I won't.
A joke?
A joke about me about the never mind. No, I don't want to. I don't want to change it because
Okay.
we have things to do, and we start changing meetings. Besides, maybe it'll be a really short meeting. It will. We'll be done. Plus, I'm on vacation the last 2 weeks of January, so our time frame of changing is very difficult. It's good. It'll be fine. He just approved it about 3 hours ago, so it'll be fine to meet. And we're waiting for Wanda. Let me check. I know she's coming because she reached out to me today. And I know that theoretically Craig is attending today. But Jeremy, we will not have today. And
There she is.
yes, okay. Okay, Wanda is there. Okay. So, I'm gonna call the meeting to order. And I'm going to count and say, let the record show that there's all 5 committee members here. So I don't think I actually have to take a verbal roll call. So hopefully Craig will join us tonight, and I'm going to thank him because this will be his last meeting as our town liaison. Just FYI, we won't have a town liaison in January. It probably won't be till February. And Nona's nodding her head because she knows all this, but it was news to me. You've got a lot more experience than I do. I also, we're going to go to oral communications, and I want to start out by saying that there is a possibility that our first Mondays at 7 p.m., we may want to explore changing those because they're really proving difficult for Jeremy to attend. He's got a personal conflict. And so we could possibly be looking again at that Thursday, the 4th Thursday of every month at 7. Is that a possibility, the 4th Thursday? It's all good. Dee, would that work out for you? Okay, and MJ, would that work out for you? Okay, so I'm gonna let him know that if that is a better time for him, because he really wants to support the committee, and he feels strongly that he would like to be the one to attend. And he's a great resource, so I think we should do everything we can to get him to attend the meeting. Okay, we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes of November 7th. I want to thank MJ once again for creating wonderful minutes. We really appreciate that, especially on top of doing the weekly tips. That's a lot of writing. Can I see a show of hands for approval of the minutes? Let the record show that everyone approved the minutes. Okay, so we're going to go on to old business, review and discuss the WPC draft safety element recommendations. And this is our first draft. So I want to say a couple of things about the draft, which you'll find in your packet. So I'm going to edit these live. I'm going to share my screen, and either we'll change any specific wording or I'll make a note about what you want me to change if it's too much of an ordeal. And then the plan is that I'll have hopefully the final draft in the January packet, and on January 2nd, we'll hopefully do the final approval. If we can't, and then we'll continue in February. I was planning to ask for community comments after we go through all the items. I don't know if we'll get through all the items. I have my watch set for like 8:15. Maybe we'll take comments at 8:15, although if we only have one person, maybe we'll just work a little later. I don't know. So let me start by thanking Nona and MJ. You sent really, really wonderful comments. I think that this is an extraordinary document. Dee and Wanda, don't worry. If you have comments during this meeting, after this meeting, you can send your comments in the next week. You can comment tonight. You can even comment on January 2nd, and we'll incorporate your comments. So we want to make sure we get any recommendation you have. I just want for the record to show that I've attached the 2 emails that the committee members sent me, MJ and Nona, to the agenda packet. And therefore everyone can see exactly what input was used. I used their 2 emails as well as my own document, which there was no need to add because it's the document you see. I did not, there are no public emails attached to the agenda because we got no feedback from anyone from the public. So there were no emails. I want also to point out that whenever possible, I try to use your actual text. There are times I may have changed a word. There are times I had to merge. In some cases, all three of us had comments on the same thing. But if the recommendation doesn't reflect your intent or your wording, it was an error on my part, because basically I agreed with everything everyone recommended. There was just one little thing that MJ and I will talk about. There was one little suggestion she made that I did change a little bit of the wording, but other than that, I agreed with everything. So your recommendation should be there completely. And I really don't see this being a part of the process. Like, we're not voting on up or down on any one recommendation. We all have great things to offer. I have no problem if there's a recommendation in the packet that someone doesn't agree with. I think that's fine. So, and then before we start editing, do you want me to actually read every item, or have you guys have all read this, so we should just and do these? Yes.
I have a quick one though,
Yes,
Jennifer.
MJ, yes.
We didn't call for public comments.
Oh, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Before I apologize. Is there any open communication, oral communications that are not on the agenda from the public? I'm so sorry.
No, I'm not going to be saying anything. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we had to give you the chance.
I am really, and please keep me honest today, because I'm really jet lagged. Even though I drove, I'm just so tired. Okay. Yes, Wanda, go ahead. You're muted. You're muted. Wanda, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Yes, okay, I fixed it. Okay, read through the document, and my overview is that the draft safety element recommendations took a lot of stuff that was theory and turned it into practical directions and statements. So thank you, my God, to MJ and Nona for doing this. I'm not inclined to edit word for word. I like the way this is going, and I'm really excited about the work you guys did. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. And I hope that everyone likes the organization, because I reorganized this document about 5 times and I'm not doing it again. So if you don't like the organization, just don't say anything. And I also want to say that this document has turned out to be a lot more detailed than I think the safety element usually is. But, and I think you need to be prepared. They're not going to accept everything that we recommended. However, there's a document coming called the CWPP, which I'm adamant that we're going to be involved with. And that document is very detailed. So the recommendations we are making tonight, we're just going to hold those over. And if they don't get in the safety element, they're going to be introduced into the CWPP. So this is our working document for the next few years. I think this has been an incredible exercise. Okay, so I'm going to start. And also, I want everyone to just chime in. Just don't even no, just talk up. Just talk.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think the organization is great. I really like it. And before we get started, I was wondering if you could just take a minute to tell us what happens after we do this and when it goes to the town staff, because I'm not exactly sure of sort of what the process is after this.
Yes. So they are asking for our recommendations in January, but of course, if we don't get them done, they're saying February is okay. They go to the architectural committee, and they are going to look at our recommendation. They're going to look at, that's the architectural committee. MJ, correct me. It's the architectural committee, right?
It's the planning commission. I
Planning
think.
commission, thank you.
Yep.
I am so in Disney. Mickey Mouse has my brain. And they are going to go along with more public comment. So our recommendations will be there, as well as pages and pages and pages of public comment. They'll look at them. They'll read them. They'll take whatever they want. And then that's it. That's my understanding. And that is why I have added comments. Because I want to make sure that people reading this understand wildfire. And so please feel free, even as you reread this over this next month, to send me an email to say, I've been rereading this. I want to add something in the comments. Okay, because I think it's really important that this is clear and that we understand that the people reading this may not understand much about wildfire. And this, and I want to say it again, the safety element, it's a part of the general plan. And it's really about policy. And, you know, you can, you know, and I spent a lot of time looking at different towns' safety elements, including Marin's, and most of it is very high level. Whereas this CWPP, which is the California Wildfire Protection Plan, that's mandated by the Board of Forestry, that's your action plan. And they're actually creating a CWPP for our district. We're right now using Santa Clara's and San Mateo's. It's very high levels, not detailed. And that's going to be the nitty-gritty action plan. But I think it's a good exercise for them to understand all of these actions, and they may just take a portion of what we recommend. This is a great document. I wish we had had the time to have done this 6 months ago in the first draft, but we didn't. Okay, so the first general comment that was actually mine about the adding for general comments, adding the implementation table. Does anyone have anything to add or comment on?
Yeah, I had a comment on that, Jennifer. What instead of putting in a reference to the Marin document, why don't you just put in a little sample table using all these new programs that you're adding within the document?
I could. I just thought everyone knows what an implementation table is, and I just wanted to keep it clean. Craig knew. I mean, if you guys want me to, I will.
Well, I didn't even go look at the other document to see what it was you were talking about, but
actually, it's a surprising. Craig actually called out that suggestion, so
he called it out. You mean?
He called it out during the meeting, and I think that. But you know, honestly, it's too late to do that. They're not going to do that. It's too late.
Oh,
I mean, I don't think they're going to really be able to add an implementation table, because when you look at how Marin did it, it would be a lot of work to add an implementation table for these different items. But I think they should know in the future that implementation tables are really important. But I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. I don't care. No, nothing.
well, I was just thinking that it is hard, you know, when there's so many programs being proposed, so many policies, it is hard to get a handle on, you know, how do you track any of this, or
Yeah.
how do you have any measures and stuff like that? But like I said, I didn't look at the Marin document to see if that would really help with this issue. I just
They
thought
should
I'd ask.
look at it, because it's much simpler to read, but it's much
Yeah.
shorter too. So I
Yeah.
can add an implementation table. I'll just make I kind of like using footnotes, but
One possibility would just be to have an example of one row in
Yeah.
the table and
I'll
say
do
this
that.
is the kind of thing,
Yeah.
because if this is going to be a higher level document without sort of a lot of action items and specifics, then I don't know what would be, how you would make the implementation table from what we've done.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe an implementation table is more about the specifics and then about the high level policy.
You know, I gotta tell you, it's their policies, their implementation table is really useful because a lot of these policies left me wondering who's gonna implement these policies. And that's the one thing that's really nice about their implementation table is that you know exactly who's doing it. You know, I'll get an example that would be useful to illustrate it. That's an easy thing to do. Okay. So other than that, we're good. Okay, let's go on to new program.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Oh, no, always.
Mhm.
Yeah, just this is going to be very informal and just speak up. For new P-1. So this is just the CWPP. I will point out that in the formatting guide for the safety element, they do mention that we should have mentioned the CWPP. So they will probably include this. And all this says is that we want to be able to review it, the town committee should review it, and that the town residents should be able to participate. Okay?
Yeah.
Any additions? Nothing? Okay, but okay, so for new P-2, this is the most complicated one. And I have to tell you, all of us had some kind of comment, and I tried to weave it into the existing document. And it as MJ had pointed out in her email, all the education pieces are so scattered around. And the big thing that I wanted to get out of this is from the comments, I say, you know, we have a lot of committees that are, and a lot of different entities all giving information. And I feel like we really need to have one big story that we tell residents. I just feel a lot of information gets lost.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that this would give them the idea that we need something cohesive. And I think MJ, I incorporated your comments, and Nona, I incorporated your comments, and I think I incorporated the FireWise program that Wanda and I presented a few months ago. Did anyone have any additions or? Oh, I'm so delighted because I have to tell you, I really did spend a lot of time on this. I'm so thrilled that you guys are so happy. Okay, so
Yeah.
going, so you guys are okay with the action items? Do you want to go through? Okay, so for new action item P2-1, we're good.
Yes,
Encourage, okay. Does anyone have anything to do with any of the action items? Are we good with all those action items?
When you say action item, you mean the A-P, whatever?
P2-2, that's an action item. At least that's how I read it. So you have the policy, so new P-2 is a new policy. And then new P2-1 is an action item under that policy. Nona, am I reading that wrong?
No, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess I missed that.
Well, they don't have a legend in the safety element that tells you how to read it.
Okay, great.
So,
Thank you.
so everybody's good?
yes.
Hot dog.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I don't know on something like this is, should you call out a role for committees or just, I don't know. Sometimes I have this problem with the safety element where it's not, where, as you say, it's not clear who does what. And maybe it's just incredibly redundant to keep saying in collaboration with WFPT, town staff and town committees will, do the following, but it is something I think we really have to emphasize somewhere.
Well, the reason I'm calling specifically, the fire district out is that Firewise is the fire district.
Yes.
So, and the thing about the town committees, you're only, I think in the safety element, it's more like this has to get done. And it's up to the town to figure out how it gets done. I mean, if the town manager does it, or if it's the town council, or if it's an ad hoc committee, that's pretty in the weeds.
Okay,
But we could emphasize, if you want to emphasize it, and we did emphasize. Yeah, I didn't you know, the big thing I wanted to emphasize here was the R4W sprint program solutions. You know, initiate multi-home projects within communities to really, so my big agenda item, I you know, if they didn't want to start our committee to do it, I'm absolutely fine with that. But AP23 is emphasizing home hardening solutions, not just education, but offering like contractors list in, you know, discounts. And then AP24, that whole thing was not only targeting neighborhoods, but targeting them and going into neighborhoods with something like R4W Sprint and actually offering solutions and projects. So that was more of my way of thinking about this. If they wanted to hire a consulting company to do it, yes, Wanda, go ahead.
Okay, there are 3 levels that we can focus on. One is policy. That doesn't accomplish anything, it just sounds good. The second one is action items, and that's a lot of what's going on here. But the third level that we do not want to get into is the nuts and bolts of how you carry out the action items. So we shouldn't be saying, here is the neighborhood, here are the leaders. I mean, I'm being silly about the detail here, but we should not be doing the details of how to do it. We're just going to tell them what to do. The policy says, this is a good idea. The action items say, this is what we need to do. Below that, we're not the ones who are going to say who does what.
Yeah.
So don't get into the details of the people and the nitty-gritty. Stick on the action items. And I think that's a lot of what is good about this, that if you read through all these action items, every one of them has specific plans, but it doesn't get down to which neighborhood and who do I talk to next door to me. So let's try to keep that division.
And you know, look at what Dee is doing right now with the fire district with something very similar to R4W Sprint. They could get a huge grant next year, the fire district, and it may be that it's not our committee going into these neighborhoods. It may be that the fire district is going into these neighborhoods using that kind of a project. So we don't want to tie the town's hands. All we want to do is tell the town, this is really important to get done. So that's what I wrote it as.
Yeah, what to do, not who does it.
Yeah,
Well, other than the overview.
yeah.
Okay, just wanted to say that bit.
Are you comfortable with that, Nona?
yeah, I guess where I was coming from is that it seemed to me you had envisioned a real role for this committee in setting up the Firewise committees or communities. And so I didn't know if we wanted to just kind of like let that go.
We're not letting that go, as our committee is not going to let that go. Well, we can talk about what our agenda is next year and what our committee does. But what the safety element is saying to the town is it is important for somehow us to encourage Firewise communities. And for us to get into these neighborhoods and help them build these projects with community leaders. That's what's important. You know, it's always going to be better if the fire district does it. That's always a better model because those are professionals and those are paid people. Our committee could do it too. So I don't want you to link what this committee does. Well, we may use the safety element as an excuse for doing what we want to do, but you shouldn't think that the safety element is describing what we do. Okay?
Yeah, I'm good with
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Everybody, and think about it, and I think, I mean, I'm going to be surprised if we approve it today. Maybe we will approve it today. We'll see. Okay, so is everybody very comfortable with this? Okay.
I have a question on AP2-4,
Yes.
the last sentence where you say design tools to initiate multi-home projects. I was going to suggest maybe you could find a word different from tools, because I always think of tools as being like a software or application or something. Maybe that should be,
I think I was thinking of our toolkit,
yeah, but
and I didn't want to use the word project because project is people going in.
yeah.
Anyone have a better word? I can think about that word.
Which thing are you talking about, MJ? Which language?
New -A-P2-4 on what page is that? Page 2 in the middle. The last sentence of that paragraph, it says design tools to initiate multi-home project. And I guess when I read that the first time, I was maybe because I used to be a software engineer, the first thing I thought of was writing a software tool or an app or a website or something like that.
I was a
So
software engineer too, so it's funny that, and that's, I was thinking of a toolkit. Well, what about design solutions? Design, create solutions?
What's
Yeah.
wrong with programs or instead of tools, what's wrong with programs?
yeah, can you use programs again? You used it in the sentence before that.
Oh, this is, I don't mind.
You just emphasize it if you use it again.
Do you think that's
Okay.
more correct?
Well, I just wanted to avoid, because I guess the reason why I thought that too was because there's so many apps and mapping tools and all these things coming out, and everybody uses tools. So I just.
But
wanted to
is
make that
one of the
clear.
things we're designing not a program? So R4W Sprint is a program, but
Right.
we also talked about the toolkit where, let's say it's a contractor's list, where a contractor could come in and, a community leader could look at a list, call up a contractor, and then they could initiate a multi-home project within a community. So it's not a program, it's a literal list where they have somebody maybe to call and they could get a discount for their community. So in that case, it's not a program, it is a tool we've given them. We could say programs and tools, design programs and tools.
I don't like that.
Resources.
Okay, think about what's wrong with saying work with community blank to initiate multi-home projects. I mean, forget working and worrying about programs or tools. Who are you going to work with to do this? Neighborhoods, leaders?
Well, the idea is we may give them a resource so we don't even have to work with anyone. For example, it could be a list.
Tools, they develop multi-home projects within communities. Just take all that initial language out if you're hung up on words. Develop multi-home projects. Why not?
Oh, that sounds good.
So
instead of saying design tools to initiate, just
Just
say
say develop
develop.
projects.
Yeah. Multi-home projects. Or encourage.
That's even better.
Yeah. That might be better because
Yep, encourage multi-home.
encourage is probably more what we're gonna end
That's
up
very
doing.
good, MJ.
hold it, I'm gonna do this right now
Or
because
support, encourage or support.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, what was that?
that was my screen coming
Oh,
up.
you did?
Yeah. Thanks, Jennifer.
What
do you-
did I do wrong?
New-
Was that a
No, I'm
sarcastic?
thanking you for
Thank you.
making the change you're about to make.
Of course, of course.
No, it's a new AP24. There you go, right in the middle.
So we're saying,
Are you gonna say encourage multi-home
Yeah.
projects or develop?
Yeah, yeah,
What-
encourage or develop, whatever you wish.
Take out
encourage
the
multi-home projects within
Yeah,
communities,
yeah,
but don't we? Yeah, it doesn't really matter because we've already talked about solutions.
yeah,
Does everyone like that?
sure.
Dee, this is your area of expertise. You like it? Boom, saving it. Boom. Okay. Okay. Anything else? We're good with,
825.
okay,
Yeah, I like all that.
okay. All right. And then there's just a blurb on what a Firewise community is in case they don't know. Okay, so we are leaving P2 unless anyone has any last minute thoughts. Okay. New P3, very simple, ensure residents are notified and prepared for wildfire evacuations. That is the existing, okay, and then the action item is ensure residents know they are in a location without sufficient emergency route access or capacity. So this is different than education. This is different than P2, which is talking about sending a message and educating. This is absolutely making sure that they are prepared. And this is all about the single egress parcels, which I think MJ suggested this, and I thought it was a really good suggestion.
Yeah, I thought it was good too. Thank you. for that.
Everybody happy? Okay. Okay, ensure the undergrounding of utility. So we're on to P4, if that's okay. And nobody's mentioned it. I think, again, it was a really good suggestion by MJ. I don't know whether they'll add it, but I think they should be prodded to think about it. Anybody have a suggestion?
Nope, I like it.
Okay, P5. Pursue regulations to ensure all properties meet. Okay, now this is the one that I changed MJ's text.
Huh,
So I said pursue, which is a wishy-washy word, regulations to ensure all properties meet minimum Title 14 minimum fire safe regulations. And MJ, your original text, I think, basically had implement those regulations.
there's a halfway in between, say promote.
We could say promote. My biggest concern was I'm not sure what all of the Title 14 minimum fire safe regulations are. There's a lot of setback stuff that kick in. And I just think that trying to put that on every parcel in town is going to take a lot of research. But I could go a lot of different ways in this direction. So I welcome you to fight for the changes you want, and we'll all make them right now.
Okay, I like promote.
Well, let me say that one of the things in the minimum fire safe regulations is the 30-foot setbacks.
Right.
If you're in the very high fire zone, you either have a 30-foot setback or you build your house to Chapter 7A, you know. So you don't have to have that distance, but you do have, then your alternative is you have to build your house, you have to harden your home. So I know that, this is a thing that PVNU had been pushing. And I had fought it because I figured that the town residents don't want to be treated like they're in the very high fire zone because they don't want to comply with all those restrictions. But when I started thinking of the town as everyone is in danger, it doesn't matter if you're in the very high fire zone or you're right next to it, you're still in the same amount of danger. And that's when I realized, yeah, maybe we do have to get this safe.
So would this would be for new builds, and it would kick in for remodels of a certain percentage?
Well, that's the thing. Later on in this document, we say that all existing housing should try to come up to the same codes. So
Right.
then, therefore, this would apply to all existing housing if we also follow the other policy. So I'm a little torn about this one myself. I only wrote it down from the perspective, yeah, if we treat the whole town as very high fire, then we need to do this.
Well, I mean,
But
I think we are, I've stressed this in so many of the comments, it doesn't really matter if you're in a very high fire zone when, if we're in a bad wildfire event, we're all going to be in really bad situations. So I'm with you on that. And I just am concerned, is that the only thing that kicks in? And what happens to people that are in very small parcels where all of a sudden they can't build or they can't sell their property because they can no longer use the existing footprint of their house? And you have to get permission to get around this standard, and nobody wants to buy that property because they don't know if they're going to be allowed to build what they want. I mean, that's what I'm more concerned about, is existing houses, let's say, that are on a cliff. They don't have a lot of space to move their house. Can every existing home in Portola Valley accommodate those restrictions?
Yeah, no, that's an issue, a valid concern. Like I was saying, you do have this alternative where you harden your home, and then you're not subject to those setbacks. But then there's other parts of the minimum fire safe regulations that specify the width of the road. There's I know someone in the hills of Santa Clara County who had a lot at the top, and she hadn't built on it yet. And then the county told her she had to widen the entire road up to her house. And she fought that. So that's another problem that can come up with these minimum fire safe regulations, is the width of the road. So that's why I say I wrote this down, because it's in the perspective of the very high fire, regulations, but it would be.
Which is
very
kind of why
painful.
I'm saying pursue it. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's a good direction, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to say that there is a, do it tomorrow. Do you
Yeah, well, given
Right.
this discussion, I think promote makes more sense.
promote? I like promote. If we all can agree,
Yeah, it was a good word, Wanda. Thank you.
good. Okay, that's saved. Are we all happy with this then, with promote?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
okay. And it's a good suggestion, MJ, and I'd love to have a big debate on it. It's a very interesting topic. Okay, last new item. Review the safety element every 2 years. This is one known as to determine whether a revision is needed. And of course, it's really hard to modify this the safety element, but it's a worthy goal. I think that there's probably some restrictions on how many times you can do it, but it's worth putting it out there. We might want to, rather than say 2 years, we could, Wanda, is there a good term to say?
How about, how about periodically? I don't know if
Periodically?
I said every 2 years, because I think there are only a couple times you can do it during the 10-year window.
Regularly?
I would say periodically.
Okay. Oh, man. That's gotta be misspelled. That is definitely misspelled. No, that's percolate. Okay, somebody help me. Hearing.
What about 3 or 4 years?
No, periodically is good. You got it.
Yeah, because there's gotta be some,
Okay,
And
okay,
you're right. A lot of this is is beyond us, right? Like,
right. Right,
okay.
okay, something to think. Okay, so we're good. We're moving on to comments and modification. Everyone happy?
yep.
Okay, so so the old text for P43 was up here. And it said, and this was your modification. So do you want to explain your modification? Because she took this one little thing and then she added all of these great action items.
Well, I guess what I can say is that it seemed to me that this was a little bit like the education issues that were kind of spread out. And, it was all good stuff that was in there, but I thought it would be easier to make sense of it if it was consolidated in one place. And it may be that I got too specific. I think it's always easy to edit out than to edit in. So I'm happy to, remove any of the action items that seem to be too detailed. One thing I can say is that when I was making some edits to this, that was before Wildfire came out with their latest ordinance last week, which was approved. And so, I think that one thing we should always keep in mind is that there will be specific ordinances coming out, and we don't want to sort of create some kind of a conflict between what this says and what those say. So that's another reason to keep this at a pretty high level.
I like everything in it. I'm not worried about too many action items. I think it gives them an idea of why the general item is there.
I
Does
think
anyone-
the two things that I felt like I wanted to add in here that weren't already part of the document that the town staff had come up with was one, to sort of keep in mind that wildlife are an ally in fighting fire risk, that, deer have browse lines, and deer browse lines are essentially the kind of ladder fuel reduction that we're all talking about all the time. So keeping an eye on the fact that we want to keep native plants and keep habitat available for animals, I think is really important, because it's a win-win. And then the second thing that I didn't see in the safety element was the fact that using the wrong tool at the wrong time or in the wrong way is likely to cause a fire. So a lot of fires get started with people using mowers under low humidity conditions when they really shouldn't be, or at a cutting level that they shouldn't be. So just having something in there that people need to really, if they're gonna do this work, they have to know how to do it correctly.
Yeah, I appreciated that, the timing of that, and as well as the riparian zone. I think that's really important to put into.
I wonder if we're doing enough with education on that.
Probably not.
Yeah, that really is something we should look at on our website and general education, or maybe at the Wildfire Fair as part of our whole landscape area, that we really have to push that education piece, because I don't think very few people know that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think it's very well written. Does anyone have any?
No, I like these.
Okay. So then we move on to P44, which Nona also modified to new P44. I particularly like the thing about the fire retardants. No one had mentioned reviewing the fire retardant. And I really like that.
I really like A44-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a section, maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing right now, but it was strange how in some places it seemed like the original wording was very specific about things like 3D modeling of landscapes, and where I didn't think we could really achieve that, or that it would do any real good. So I was trying to. Oh, that's in the next section.
Yeah, I think you're seeing also that people adding one piece at a time, as opposed to a cohesive process where I think that's why it's kind of all scattered. Okay, so are we good with P44? Okay.
Yes.
So now we have P45. And this was also Nona. And I had no problem with that. I thought it was very well worded.
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. And I think I copied it.
I did have one question about that section. So what's the definition of open space area? That doesn't mean public open space. Does it also include like large landowners, private landowners?
No, I think public space means that.
Well, it says open space areas, so I wasn't sure if that was public or private or both.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't quote me, but I'm thinking of just recently saw a map of the town of Portola Valley's open space, and they're all public.
So I think that the general plan has definitions of open space, and we might want to check this against that. But I was imagining that this was basically town-owned open space, and mid-pen lands, although the town doesn't really control that, they should be subject to some of the same, concerns about fuel breaks and things like that.
I read it as well as that, and I envisioned this as Don's effort to work with mid-pen very effectively, that he expresses his concern and there's a give and take. So yeah, this has got to be the open space areas.
But shouldn't these same principles apply to the large landowners? I forget how many there are in Portola Valley, but there's like 3 or 4 private large landowners, right?
Because open space has a whole different set of an individual parcel, whether it's big or not. Don has complete control. He can go in and he can say that's it, and if needed he could actually mitigate and charge them. And open space is protected. Well, Nona, you're the expert, but open space is a protected land, so he has to work with them in a completely different way.
Oh, okay.
Am I correct with that?
That seems right to me. And the new ordinance that the Fire Protection District just approved talks about parcels that are 10 acres or more, and says they have to have 100-foot buffer around the edge of a perimeter. So I think that most of the private land holdings that are large would be covered under those kinds of ordinances already.
Okay.
I missed that ordinance. I think it's because I was gone, but what Where
So
did
it
you-
was adopted on the 29th of November. And I think it's effective immediately. I'll send it if you didn't get it.
Yeah, can you send it? I would be,
Yeah.
I'm surprised that no one, like, I'm on all of the email lists and I didn't get it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this either.
Okay, I will forward it.
I'm gonna talk to Jeremy about why we didn't get it. It seems to me like we should get automatically copied on stuff like that. I mean, and he may have, if the fire department had a district had come today, they might have briefed us. Okay, so are we good with P45?
Okay, yeah, I'm fine.
Well done. Okay. So P46 is modified and you can see the existing text. This was originally was supposed to be encourage the use of fire resistant vegetation for landscaping, especially in high fire zone. And we crossed that out to say in all parcels, especially in defensible space areas 0 to 5 and 30 and 100-foot zones.
I like that.
Okay. Very similar. Yes.
Can I just
Yes.
jump in for a second? It might be that we need to be a little higher level on that, in that one of the things that surprised me in this new ordinance is they said very explicitly that structures should have clearance down to bare mineral soil from 0 to 2 feet from structures. And I don't think that they had really said it in quite those terms before. So it seems like Woodside Fire is getting pretty specific.
So,
Mm.
so I have a question for MJ. So you're on the 0 to 5 committee for the state. I thought we were waiting for 0 to 5 to come out. And now they're talking 0 to 2.
It sounds like, I don't know anything about this, but it sounds like the fire district is going, you can go more severe than whatever the state is doing. And if they're saying 0 to 2 is down to bare mineral, that's more severe. Although we hadn't had a zone 0 meeting in a long time, and we had one on Thursday. And what happened is a couple of people from the insurance industry from IBHS have joined this work group, and they're telling us because the work group had come up with the idea that 0 to 5, it would be okay to have like 4 inches of plants or whatever. And the insurance guys are saying that they want to see it, non-combustible completely. And so I don't know how that's going to affect what the zone 0 work group comes up with. But the other thing that happened is it turns out somebody in the state wanted to have a financial analysis of how this regulation was going to affect everybody in the SRA. They're not even looking at who's affected in the LR, the local areas, municipalities. And so that's pushed this whole schedule back, I think, at least 8 months.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
Right.
So Nona, back to your comments for P46, it's encouraged the use of fire resistant vegetation in all parcels, especially in these zones. I don't.
I think it's fine. I
think
think that
it's
if it's too specific, at some point, someone else will need to, modify it. But I think it's a good thing for us to say.
It's very interesting developments where our life is not going to be boring, is it? Okay, so we're moving on then to P47. Require a vegetation clearance. So this is again, okay, so this one was require vegetation clearance and maintenance for, and originally it was private roads and properties in very high fire zones. And we basically said, no, all private roads And then we added those 2 action items, and that's where I stuck your, I think it was MJ's prohibit street parking, or maybe that was Nona's, and then define vegetation clearance standards for private roads to ensure safe access for emergency responders. Some of it is, I think, it has some duplication, but honestly, this was not written. It's just the way it was written, and I don't want to rewrite the whole safety element more than we already have.
Yeah.
All good, P 47, okay. Okay, modified P 48, and I just got rid of where possible. I didn't understand what possible property we would not want to maintain and adequately fund fuel breaks and other improvements that are in compliance with fire safe regulations. I don't know why you would have to say where possible. So I just said, nope. Okay.
Okay, I really would like the where possible to stay in there.
Really? Okay. Well, we would just delete it then, because then we wouldn't be modifying this at all. I mean,
Yeah,
I just don't understand why you would have a parcel that's out of compliance or it is required to have a fuel break because of fire code regulations, and you wouldn't enforce that.
okay. I think that I would have trouble on my property because I live on the top of a cliff. And I'm not sure I could do what this is suggesting. And I really would like the weasel wording in there for where possible, because somebody else might have a similar problem. So I wouldn't modify it.
What do you guys want to do? You want me just to delete it?
I can be voted down, but I just thought you ought to
We're
hear
not
it.
going to vote you down. It's just, and I did ask them, I think that was one of the questions I asked them, and they have not gotten back to me on it.
I think that when we discussed it last time, Craig had some thoughts on why that wording was necessary, and it had to do with, parcel adjacencies, and he had several reasons why he thought where possible was actually kind of might be legally necessary to include.
Should I just delete it then?
I would rather you delete it.
I'm fine with that.
Boom. There you go, Wanda.
Thank you.
And I'm saving, so I can't bring it back. Okay, so modified P 49 again. So this was a case where they wanted to ensure access to swimming pools and stuff for the fire district if it was in a high fire risk area or adjacent to. And my thought was, well, wouldn't we want the fire district to have access to, I mean, if there's a wildfire event, whether you're in a high fire area or not, the whole town is probably going to be possibly having a problem. So I don't know why you would only want to specify access to those water sources for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. I like the changed wording.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was gonna say, maybe instead of saying ensure, that should be, what were we saying instead? Promote?
Well, that was their wording. Their original wording was to ensure.
Oh, really?
So I didn't want to modify it any more than I had to.
Okay,
Yeah, I like ensure in this case. It's
Okay.
actually relatively easy. Well, I think so.
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Moving on to P52, maintain and enhance water supply infrastructure. Okay, so the only thing new here is we added So I added this one. It's just requiring all exterior water fire suppression sprinkler systems, you know, the ones that go on the outside, to have an automatic shut off if public water supply pressure drops below a certain level. I mean, that's what mine has. It's a couple bucks, and everyone is concerned that these suppression systems are going to be calling for water when the water pressure drops. It's a pretty simple addition. Just regulate it.
What happens if it's an existing system? Is it expensive to go back and retrofit?
No, it's
don't
just
know.
you put it on where, you know, where the now, if you have a system that's dependent on public water, then you might be unhappy. But honestly, if public water is going to be, you know,
I just didn't know if this was suddenly a multi-$1,000 issue for somebody. Otherwise, I'm fine with the change.
no, I mean, yeah, well, I mean, if you spent that much money, you know, it's fine. You just get a plumber out and it's a fairly simple cutoff. No, I don't think it's a big deal. Everyone okay with that?
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, P54. MJ had a very good comment.
Yeah.
That currently there is no suitable structure for temporary shelter in the town.
Yeah, really smart.
Yeah,
Well, that, you know, that's my opinion. Maybe Don, if he were here, would disagree. I don't know, but I can't think of any place.
no, this was discussed.
It was?
We
Hmm.
discussed it with I discussed it with Jeremy.
Oh, you did?
Jeremy.
Okay.
And yes, in order to make a shelter in place structure, you know, you have to have special filters on the air. You
Mm.
have to make sure it's defensible. You know, you can't just show up at the community hall and say, oh, great, I have a place to hide.
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. And there is no place right now that people can go and shelter in place. And I think that's a very good comment. Ready to move on? Okay. Another good comment on P58 that MJ said as far as become a fire risk community.
I
Adopt
said that.
comprehensive wildfire retro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, on to P66. And so we modified the action item 661
Yeah,
to simply say update and expand home hardening ordinances to existing buildings. And then I deleted action item 66-2. I thought it was redundant with one of our new items. Plus, it made no sense to me because this is P66 is about home hardening, and action item 66-2 was talking about vegetation disposal assistance and things that had nothing to do with home hardening, that it was more defensible space. I just thought it was very poorly written.
I'm good with the change.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me
Okay.
too.
Makes sense.
Okay. So and then we added one, and then this is a very good one by MJ, streamline permit process for home hardening and fire mitigation.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Anyone have any questions to MJ about that? I thought it was a very good one. Something that we should pursue next year, whether they adopt this or not. I think that would be a really good thing for our agenda. Okay, and then we added, that was me. This is a bee in my bonnet about requiring the installation of ember-resistant vents for home resales in most building permits. Just an easy way to
Yep.
slowly get people up to date.
Yep.
Okay, modified for P68. Again, monitor new laws that increase minimum building standards and expand requirements to all areas in town. Okay. And then P71, we added these action items.
One suggestion.
Yes, for which one?
Okay, the 71-1,
Mm-hmm.
instead of some building permits, say specified building permits, and then it's up to some other body to specify which building permits.
We're talking P71. Are we talking an action item?
Yeah, A 71-1.
Require,
Instead of some building permits, they specified building permits. And then somebody else will specify which, because right now we can't really define which building permits, whether you're changing 2% or 90%.
so you want this to read, require a fire district defensible space inspection for home resale and
Specified building.
And- specified building permits.
Yeah, because somebody's gonna have to jump in there and specify. And I don't know who and when.
Wouldn't that mean if I said specify that it's somewhere in this document I'm specifying it?
If you say some, it's wishy-washy and
And,
nobody's gonna know what to do. If you say specified, then somebody has to figure it
okay.
out and do the work to define which ones, and that's a long, detailed task.
Okay, so up here for A664, do you want that to read, require the installation of ember-resistant vents for home resales and specified building permits as well?
Yeah, I would do it up there too.
Everyone agree with that?
Yeah, nice to be consistent.
Yeah, yeah, I agree too.
Good job.
Yeah. Okay. All right, A71.
Can I have a question? I have a question about A71-1. A defensible space inspection for specified building permits. Does that mean in the plan review, or does that mean at when the project is completed that you do an on-site inspection?
I was thinking before you got your final, clearance after your building permit. When you take out a building permit, the last visit, you have to show the inspector your defensible space inspection, but I don't really care when it happens.
But that's the whole
Okay.
point of specified. Somebody on the staff level has to work that all out.
Yeah. I just would like, Don is always trying to find ways to get people to have this done. And if you have to install ember-resistant vents or have a defensible space inspection, maybe every 5 or 10 years, because you're getting some kind of a building permit done, that's not a bad thing. At least you've had to bring your house up to code because you were changing your siding, or you had to get your ember-resistant vents installed because you were doing your siding or something.
Plus, we might learn something over the next few years that changes what we think a year from now versus 5 years from now. That's why I don't want to say some, it's too vague.
Well, no, we don't want to say some, but it's more like, do we want to specify at the end of the building permit or before final, what do you call it, D, final inspection?
Yeah, but again, the fire district already has, I'm in agreement, like, let's not try to work that out. Because it might mean the fire department, signing off. Usually they would have to sign off before the building inspector. The building inspector's sign is the very final thing. You're good, you're clear. So.
And you would want to give them the flexibility that maybe you, anytime in the 6 months before your final, because you don't want to.
Again, I think I would leave that with the building department, because they're gonna have to include it in the stamp plans, and then they're gonna have to figure out the logistics of when the contractor actually has to get it inspected.
Okay. One more thing for them
I
to
guess,
do, right?
can I just jump in for 1 second then? I'm wondering if there should be something about a checklist then for plan reviews. So building permit submissions, the plan, landscaping plan or whatever, that says what has to be in the defensible space. And we don't have to say what that is, but establish a checklist for the plan review stage so that people know what has to be done.
But Don's already got that.
I
And-
think that's getting too detailed.
Yeah, and there's only a certain list of things, like Don can't say your tree is dead. And you have to chop down your tree, but he can say you have to trim your limbs.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about anything that's that specific. It could just say must comply with the most recent ordinance for defensible space at the plan review stage. It's just a thought, because I look at a lot of landscaping plans as part of the conservation committee, and we always have to go through them when we say, how close is that planted to the house? How big is that shrub going to get when it's mature and all that stuff? And that's because they don't really know what is allowed and what's not.
And I wasn't thinking landscaping plan. I was literally thinking they go through and they say,
Yeah.
you are up to fire code. We
Okay.
have not flagged you for anything. So would you want to use a different term than defensible space inspection? Because I kind of looked it up and it's not real clear the term you use. I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of
Okay.
what.
All
we
right,
refer to,
then
but-
leave it a little bit. Let the building department then figure it out.
You sure? Everybody's good with that? As long as the firemen get out there and just say that they don't have any fire danger flags, I don't care how we word this. It's just another excuse to get an inspection.
Yeah.
Okay. We're all good? Okay, so 71-2. This was Nona's, this was yours. Citation process should support discretionary authority, okay. And this is what they're talking about anyways, as a way to enforce. I put that here because, because this makes sense, because this is the mechanism. Anybody have any?
What does that mean? Support discretionary authority?
Thank you. I was about to ask that too.
Oh.
No, it's your thing. Do you want me to answer it? Do you want to?
I guess what it meant to me is that if the fire protection district wanted to do something like that, I don't know if they need support from the town to do that, but that the town should consider giving that support, granting that support. I don't know who gets to decide some of those things.
So I read it as there's a move now, rather than when you do enforcement, the classic model is you go in, you abate the problem, and then you bill the people and you say, this is how much you owe us. And then you have to collect the money. And a lot of towns are using instead the ability to cite violations and charge fees. And you want to give the fire district the ability to go in and fine people if there is a violation, and to say you have 90 days to clean it up, you have 30 days to clean up, to really give them discretionary authority, so that if this is a real critical situation, and if it's a little old lady who right now doesn't have the money to clean it up, they can say, okay, I'm going to give you 6 months. But if it's a real critical situation, they say, no, you have only 30 days. So it's giving them the discretionary authority to be able to go in and gauge how severe things are and how long people have to fix a violation. It's an
Yeah.
interesting list of action items. I don't think they're going to be kept as they're written, but I think this whole issue of how we can support the fire district and how the fire district can go in and enforce code violations is a real good discussion.
I
Do we
think
want-
that Woodside Fire had some kind of request in their comments about greater discretionary authority as well. I don't
They did.
remember what they were, but we could just leave it with the P and not go into any of the action items. It just, if that seems too specific or not clear enough, that's fine.
I don't have any problem with the specifics because it might make somebody take a piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to be specific. But then I can go either way on this. What do you guys think? Now, I mean, personally, the A71-4 in collaboration, consider discretionary authority to select private properties where public funds should be used to help landowners. I love that idea. I just don't know what funds we would use. There's a whole bunch of problems with that, but I love the idea.
Well, doesn't that apply, if we get that grant? Isn't that where this applies, 71-4?
No, that grant must be used for a matching fund program. That gives, I think it was $3,000 per.
Right. But
But
it's,
the fire district doesn't have any discretionary. License to give money where they see it. It's going to be like a first come, first served basis, I think.
I thought, oh,
Yeah.
I thought the fire district already, well, for Woodside, I thought the fire district does decide who gets the money. It doesn't?
No, it's
Okay.
everybody, you apply and you get the money. I mean, it's assuming you've done what's on their list. No, this is not, it's not a pot of money where the fire district gets to decide who gets it.
Oh, okay.
But that's not to say that a pot of money, I mean, I personally discussed this concept. It is not to say that a pot of money could not be created for this use. That is possible. It would take some doing.
I guess what I was thinking is that it would be good if there was a mechanism where if you had a property that was really out of compliance and the homeowner really could not afford to make the changes, and it's a public, it's a public health risk, public safety risk to the community at large, could there be a way to make the changes, and maybe the homeowner pays it back over time in part, or maybe it's there's just some other mechanism for protecting public safety when an individual parcel is really creating a problem, a potential problem.
From my understanding, it can be done. And from my understanding, it has been done to some degree. In the very few cases that I've heard about. I mean, I don't know any details about it, but the bigger issue is that given we don't really know as a town how much need there really is. I mean, there hasn't ever been a survey done. The town doesn't know how much, how many assets
Right.
have. And if you look at the results of the census, we have like less than 5% of the population, I think it was, that was even in that zone that would need it. So it's really, and that's one of the big things that I've been pushing is some kind of grant for low income families. And we won't know if we needed it until we had it to see if anyone applied for it. So yeah, it's a good thing to think about. And given the recession, we may have more families that need it. And I think it's a good issue to talk about. Anything else on this? Are we all happy?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Again, something I never thought about. Thank you, MJ. P79, prepare the town for post-disaster recovery through proactive planning. Never knew that we needed that.
I thought that was in the safety element. I just said, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
But I thought
your
it was
comment-
already there.
Yeah, but your comment I thought was really good. And then your action
Oh.
item, your post-disaster recovery framework is, I did not know that we needed that. Okay. So we're going on to P90. Okay. So this exists. All of this exists. The only thing that we're modifying is A93. And and so this overall talks about requiring new developments and redevelopments within very high fire zones to provide a minimum of 2 points of access. Okay, great. But then down at A90-3, they're talking about established mitigations for properties with restricted and single points of access. So this is the P90 talked about new developments, and then they started talking in A90-3 about existing. So I said, well, then we can get rid of only restricting this to apply to just very high fire zones. Why wouldn't we want to establish mitigations on all properties in Portola Valley with only one single point of access? Why would we just restrict that research to just a few areas? It's kind of confusing because P90 is starts out talking about new developments and redevelopments, and then they kind of sneak in the A90-3. But I just think that if you're talking about special assessments to pay for expanding, road access, why wouldn't we do that eventually on all the roads with single points of access? Took me a while to understand this one.
Actually, Jennifer, in P90, don't you want to strike out the high and very high fire hazard severity zones in the first sentence?
Oh, yes.
Okay, yes, and I thought about doing it, but I mean, again, this is separate. This is for new developments and redevelopments, but I would be happy, you know how I am, I would be happy to do that because, okay, so let's do that. Okay, so okay. Okay. I like it. You good with this now?
Yeah. So
Okay.
far.
I'm gonna hit save. Okay, and then you have the new one. I thought that the PV red flag warning to include no street parking. It's a slightly redundant because we talked about street parking somewhere else, but not with red flag warning. So I thought that was really good.
Okay.
And then MJ made a comment on P91. We're not changing it, but she's pointing this out that it should have been on the list of the EPC's priority list. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's smart.
Okay, and then we are done, except that we are calling out certain fire district recommendations that they made that we all agreed with. And these were the policies that we wanted to specifically support. And at the very bottom, Nona, that was where the CPAW people said allow the fire district the ability to cite on the first violation.
Mm.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm going to ask for public comment. Is anybody out of our many, many people that are watching, does anyone have any public comment on this? Okay. So technically we're done. They are going to be sending out a list of answers to questions. I thought they were going to have it probably any day now. You know, we could submit this tomorrow and be done with it, or we can hold it till January and get those list of answers, and then we can have a month to just think about this, and you can vote on it in January. Do you want to do that?
I'd rather submit it.
Well, no, everybody here outvoted one. So we really haven't made any significant changes. Think about it. If you think of anything you want to add over the next week, send it to me. On January 2nd, we can review it one more time. I will send you the answers to our questions when I get them in December. I don't think, and maybe that'll generate something. If you get the list of answers and you therefore want to add something to the document, don't be afraid of sending it to me. I should be able to get it added before our January 2nd meeting. Okay. Well done.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was really amazing. Okay. So we're just going to run a little over. I apologize. So with that, we're going to move on to new business. Very quickly, MJ is just going to update the final results for the R4 Sprint project.
You know what? I just saw that on the agenda.
Well,
So-
they're in the agenda packet. So
Yeah, the
that's fine.
slides are in there. I guess the main thing to say is after Dee and I contacted the people on Alhambra Court, and it took a while. But it did turn out that 5 of the 7 who participated in the assessments, 5 of the people actually did mitigations, mostly in the landscape area. I think one person did vents, right? Dee, your friend. Yeah. So it turned out that so that was what, 71%, right? Participation after doing the assessments. And since 2 people on the block did not participate, then out of the 9, it meant that something like 54% actually did mitigations because of the assessments and this project. So you know, I thought the results were pretty good. I know Jeremy was very happy, and Don, I think, was happy too. So yeah, so it turned out to be very worthwhile, and that's why, well, that's not actually why, but I guess Don, even before he saw those results, he liked it enough that's why he's doing a second run in Woodside Highlands. So that's all I had to say.
I would really like this year to make sure we've discussed this and decided, you know, based on what the fire district is going to do, if we're going to do something. And it's a really interesting project, and
Yeah.
it could really be important.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, I actually wrote about this in the tip that comes out tomorrow. And I stuck in some little photos.
Okay, anyone else have any questions for MJ from the committee? Does anyone out in the public have any questions on this for MJ? Okay. So we're gonna go on to discussion, very brief, you guys. So possible 2023 agenda items. So I just want to let you know we already have. So obviously the Wildfire Fair, probably 10 minutes, February and March to give you an update. You're all participating. Thank you. We've got Stanford. What they all have agreed to participate. It's wonderful. The Stanford will be coming to give us an update. Actually, I postponed it because of the safety element, so they're ready.
Good.
Also, Los Altos Hills Fire Department and the Palo Alto PD, I guess, are Jeremy and Donna are very anxious for them to come and to tell us what they have been doing with some fire mitigation efforts near their town. So that could be on our agenda. We've got fire maps coming any day. They're soon.
I heard last week that they were supposed to come out this week.
Yeah. So fire maps. And then what does that mean? We do have this whole idea of the CWPP. I don't think it's soon. I think it's later on in the year. We've got this whole issue of fire mitigation program funding. Even if the grant is authorized, I think there's a very good chance that we will be asked to participate somehow in defining that grant program. And we will be involved with that. And if, of course, if it doesn't happen, then we will be making a recommendation and we will still be doing a report either way, because even if we get the grant, the town council needs to understand the ramifications if you continue with that past the grant. So what are some other things that you guys would like to see, or pet projects or things that are important to you that you would like to, and then insurance is obviously going to be an issue. At one point, we're going to have a presentation from Wanda on that. What else?
You forgot Firewise.
Okay, and I was thinking about that part of the fire mitigation effort. So do we want to just have a whole discussion about what we want to do with Firewise and how we fit in?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was thinking along these terms. I'm not exactly sure how to express it, but something around communication. Firewise is the best way to start, because we talked about working with, like neighborhood captains. But somehow I just wanted to tie that into communication, right? Like when we were talking about the sprint, it's just so hard to get people's actions and reactions and responses and replies. And so I'd love to spend some time, and maybe this can just be under the Firewise umbrella of how do we, have updated contact information, and who is it that someone can call? Like I just think that communication around these neighborhoods and neighborhood captains is really key. And I'm not exactly sure where to put that in, but maybe it'll just be underneath Firewise. I think if we could put Firewise as a topic to cover.
I actually think, okay, so you know how our program presentation had 3 modules and one of them was communication?
Mhm.
That module can happen. We don't
Right.
need a fire mitigation program. And I kind of think Firewise is almost under that.
Okay.
I think you're right. And I think it's a big deal. And I think it's also this whole thing about there are so many different entities giving information as well. I'm not sure people are tuned in and are really following all the things they need to do.
Mhm.
Okay. Nona had sent me an email about us reviewing ADU plans. Those ADU plans that people are,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we can do that. Do you
So-
want to do that?
What?
So I might, when do the report from conservation, I can just tell you a little bit about where that is at our end. I mean, the basic thing about the ADUs is that they don't go through the regular review process. They have a ministerial checklist. And so conservation was told that we could provide a potential checklist for the town staff to use when they review plans. It has to be very unambiguous, like count this or, sign that or whatever. Because, conservation won't have the opportunity to review the planting plans for ADUs going forward. So when we get to that, I'll tell you what we asked them to include.
I think that it's worth us doing that, especially if we have a process like we did with this one, where you just send me your input and we just have a quick draft recommendation to review. It doesn't have to take our whole meeting. But I think that it makes sense for us to review basic wildfire safety issues. And when we've got a few months, Jeremy said that we had a while. Okay. We're going to have the zone 0 changes. Okay, so of these topics, what is the most, so of communication to me, I would say is my number one thing that has been mentioned. I think it's more important than anything else I mentioned, except maybe the CWPP. I really like the idea of us just spending a meeting talking about the problems of communication and how we might look at that. I'm not sure how much we could improve, but it's kind of like part of that toolkit piece. Who else agrees with that? No?
I mean,
Yeah. Okay. So communication's definitely something, and that's under Firewise, that whole issue of how do we talk about the town, and biospheres, back to known as biospheres. That's all part of that.
Could I suggest that maybe in one of the wildfire tips that you MJ sort of let people know ahead of time that that's what that meeting will be about, and then have people come and say, I didn't know where to get this, or I got conflicting answers on these two things, just so we have a better
that's good.
understanding of what the communication needs are
Yeah. What they
within
want.
the town.
I love that.
I don't know how you think about maybe it's not a tip, maybe it's just a
Wait, say that again?
well, if we're going to have a meeting where we just talk about communication, then it might be helpful to have more public participation, or at least really interested people come and say, well, what I need to know is where I get the information on this or that, or, what kind of like one-stop shopping do people need? Because I think that's what we all really find useful, is just a straightforward path to getting to the answers that you need.
Mhm.
Do you
So
want,
advertise and solicit input from the
Yeah,
community.
thank you.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I meant.
do you want like a 5-minute thing where that this is where everything is, this is what the fire district does, this is what EPC has, this is what all of these pieces are, so that we can kind of see the web of information that is out there?
Yes, you do not want to start open-ended and just ask for comments or questions. Frame it
Yeah.
first, just what you
Okay.
described.
Okay. And then MJ, do you think, so how do you see, so fire maps are super important. How do you see that conversation going? They're going to present fire maps to us, but there really isn't going to be much. I mean, and then we're going to have some concerns and comments, but it's not like they're going to ask us for a recommendation. There's not much to do except for us to understand them, right? So that's probably going to happen in February.
The maps coming out, supposedly coming out next week, I believe, are just for the SRA. And I'm not I don't remember offhand when the LRA maps come out, which would be us, the municipalities.
I get the feeling it's going to be February. So maybe February, March, whatever doesn't happen, we do communications and fire maps. Does that sound good?
Sure.
I guess it would be good to do it before the fair. Do
Yeah.
you think?
I don't think we're gonna, I mean, honestly, to be honest with you, the fair is gonna take so much of my time. Nothing's going to happen before the fair. I mean, we're not creating, but it's neither here nor there. I mean, it's gonna be too late to change anything for the fair.
Okay. Well, so
Um,
you want to do this communications
Just to discuss
meeting?
what we might want to do, because I mean, you guys are building a toolkit of resources, but I think this also could be part of, I think this is part of defining what do we want to do for the next year or two. You know, is there a piece of communications we want to work in? Does that fit into the toolkit? Are we focusing on Firewise? What are we going to do?
Well, I don't know. You just actually went through a huge list of things.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Uh,
yeah, and we really don't really have, you're right, we don't really can't do a project, but we could improve communications.
Yeah.
We could spearhead an initiative to streamline communications, to get a joint one-stop shopping experience for residents where all the committees have one page where they put all of the important information on. We could.
Let's not take on any new tasks.
Okay. All right, we can continue this in January. Let me think about this. Let's move on. Is there any other agenda items you want me to think about for next year? No? Good. Is there any comment from the community on agenda items? Okay, great. Let's go into subcommittee updates. Conservation Committee.
So the only thing I really have to report is that Conservation did provide feedback to the town for the ministerial checklist for ADUs. And the two things that are on that list that are relevant to Wildfire. One is all ADU units shall comply with applicable health and safety setback requirements governing specific parcels, including but not limited to setbacks required for fire safety, emergency vehicle access, et cetera, et cetera. So that one is in there for the setbacks on the ADUs. And then for new planting, we said that new planting must be more than 5 feet or more from the structure as measured from the exterior walls. And new planting plans have to be certified by the preparer of the landscape plan that they do not include any plants that are on the do not plant list. So that way it's the responsibility of the landscape design planner to certify it rather than having the town staff have to check something about plant list versus do not plant.
Right on.
So there are a bunch of other things, but those are the two that really relate to fire.
Any questions for Nona? Does anyone from the community have a question for Nona? Okay. How about home hardening and vegetation management? You got an update?
I don't have an update. Do you have anything?
Just gonna start the Woodside Highlands assessments next week. So I'll let you know more in January.
Oh, wow. Finance and Insurance Subcommittee, Wanda, do you have anything? Your unit.
We're waiting to see what the insurance companies are going to do. I feel like I'm partway into this and don't have anything specific to comment on yet.
And then for the Wildfire Fair, I have to create a whole different agenda item because it's not a subcommittee and I don't want to make it a subcommittee
For what?
for Wildfire Fair because it's not under any of these subcommittees. So
Well, then I guess it's in your column.
no, I think it has to be, it'll just be like new business or old business and it'll just be a
works.
line item.
That works.
Okay, any questions for Nona or anybody from our vast gallery of residents that are at the meeting? No? Okay. Other business, the fire marshal's not here, the staff is not here. Quorum check for January 2nd. Is everyone going to be here?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's the agenda item next month will just be approve this document, talk about any of the questions that they gave us, and probably agenda items for the next year. That'll be all we'll do. It'll be a short meeting.
Great.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, happy holidays,
Happy
everyone. Thank you
holidays.
so
Hey, we
much.
have to move to adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry. So do I call for an adjournment or do I have to ask for, does someone have to move to adjourn? And
He
so-
just
yeah.
moved to adjourn.
I second.
Wanda?
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's adjourn.
Happy
Okay.
holidays.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.